Well, hello out there, and welcome to another edition of the Hyperion Adventures podcast. My name's Tom. I'm here with my lovely wife, Michelle.
Hello.
It's so nice for you to join us again. Thank you for finding us, whether it be SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play. We're just happy you joined us, and we're happy to have people out there listening, just like Jennifer, who found us on Facebook and said, "You guys kept me company on a long ride home from the beach today. Your passion and enthusiasm really comes through. Keep up the good work." That was so nice of her.
Yeah, that was really nice. We appreciate it. And we appreciate everybody who writes in or even tweets us some comments and things. We really take that feedback to mind and want to make this a really great show for everybody to enjoy.
Yeah, if you want to say hello to us, if you have a comment, a tip, we'll share your tips with our listeners out there. If you have something we'd like to share, if there's some stories that you'd like us to discuss or go over, we'd be happy to do it. As Jennifer found us on Facebook and Instagram at Hyperion Adventures Podcast, on Twitter at Hyperion Podcast, and you can email us at hyperionadventurespodcast@gmail.com.
Right. So thank you, and hope we are meeting everybody's needs. And like I said, let us know if there are things we can do to make it even better for you.
So last week, our big story was going over our spoiler-free review of Ant-Man and the Wasp, which you finally got to see this week.
Did.
And I know what were your thoughts on it?
It was great. You know, it's a really enjoyable film to see. I love a lot of the little kitschy kind of music and things that they put out there that are little nods to some blast from the past and stuff. So it was fun. It was just a fun movie. Although there were parts to it that you could see kind of show where they might link up in the future with the Avengers, possibly, or, and as I mentioned, kind of giving an explanation of how the Ant-Man was not at the last battle.
Yeah, a reason why he wasn't anywhere in Infinity War. They kind of explained that away. And you'll find that out if you've gone and seen it. We'd love to hear what you thought of it. If you haven't gone and seen it yet, go out, check it out. It's a pretty good movie. We really enjoyed it, and we think you'll like it too.
Right.
So onward to this week. We previewed this during the week. We are going to go over. We figure you people maybe are getting ready to go out. Maybe you're going to have your vacations coming up, whether it be this summer, whether it be this fall, next year, or whatever. And there's some of you out there, maybe Walt Disney World is the only place you've gone. You've never gone to Disneyland. Or maybe you're on the West Coast like we are, and you've only really gone to Disneyland. And you never really experienced Walt Disney World. Well, we're here to share with you what's the same, what's different, and what you can expect out of both of those two resort areas, Disney resort areas. And so we thought that'd be a fun way for you to kind of know what to expect when you're going on your vacation coming up.
Right. Because, again, what we want is that you have a great experience no matter which park you go to. And sometimes understanding the differences and how to navigate through things can really make your experience much more enjoyable.
Absolutely. And so Michelle, originally coming from the East Coast, she has much more experience in Walt Disney World than I do. I've been there several times, but she has been there dozens and dozens of times. Whereas I was on the West Coast. I've been to Disneyland for the years. So how we're going to break this down is Michelle is going to go over and tell you what's different. If you know Disneyland, what you might expect if you go to Walt Disney World Resort. And when she's finished that up, I'm going to tell you the difference of if you're used to Walt Disney World Resort, what you might expect from the Disneyland Resort. So with that said, Michelle, take it away.
All right. Well, there are similarities, obviously, and there's big differences. And I know we could spend a lot of time just talking about the elements of the abundance of space at Disney World compared to Disneyland. But wanted to be a little more creative and a little more helpful. So for today, I did my top 5 categories of differences.
List. I love lists.
I know. So starting with number 5. The dining differences.
Okay.
So you can make dining reservations at Disney World 6 months in advance. You can do that online. Whereas on Disneyland, I know it's 2 months. So that's a nice advantage. And obviously there's more table service restaurants that you can go to, and they've added alcohol to a lot more of their
For those of you that are on the
restaurants.
more of an adult trip, it's nice.
It is nice. I mean,
And even those of you with kids, sometimes, you need a little bit.
right, exactly. For a long, long time, Disney World, like Disneyland park, had an alcohol-free experience, and the other parks, just like on the West Coast here, where California Adventure had alcohol, the other parks at Walt Disney World would serve alcohol, and now it's made its way into the Magic Kingdom.
But just at a few places in the Magic Kingdom.
Right. So, but the other dining difference is that they have a lot of great dinner packages and dessert packages for special viewing of fireworks and other shows. And I know that, again, there's things on the West Coast. I keep doing that. There's things on the West Coast that you can get, like for Fantasmic, etc. But Disney World, they have a lot more there. They have several dessert packages at different parks, whether it be at Epcot for Illuminations. They have the Star Wars Galactic Spectacular show at Disney's Hollywood Studios. They also have a pirate cruise that brings kids out to watch the fireworks from the water.
Well,
and
kids
adults.
Kids at heart.
Yes. And so they also have the Highway in the Sky Monorail Dine Around, which is a 5-course progressive dinner package ending in a reserved location at the Contemporary Resort to watch the fireworks there. So I think that's a nice little extra that they have there. It gives you some really prime viewing for the fireworks and other similar shows.
Yeah, that's nice. And one thing about, you're talking about the dine around, one thing that people from the Disneyland Resort, and we can get into this more later, but if you only know the monorail is kind of a ride, it kind of gets you from downtown Disney into the park and back out to downtown Disney at Disneyland. Well, at Walt Disney World, the monorail is actually transportation to and from the parking lots or from hotels or from the transportation center to either Epcot or the Magic Kingdom. So it's not just a ride. I mean, you can enjoy it and have fun with it, but it really does get you around out there in those parks.
Exactly. All right, moving on to number 4. Number four is free interactive games at the park.
Ooh.
So they're in several of the parks. They have these activities that kids can do, or adults. And it's really great ways to either get to know a park, get to see different sites in a park, or also just to have some time between fast passes as you're waiting for your next one to come up. So for Magic Kingdom, they have the Sorcerers of the Kingdom. And this is an interactive game where you go to the firehouse and you log yourself in there, and they give you a set of cards that have spells on them, and you use those to battle villains throughout the Magic Kingdom, and they tell you where to go for the next experience there.
They give you a map, and you kind of have to search out to find the places on the map where these events take place.
Right. So they're not super obvious in some cases. So again, it gets you to find some of the little nooks and crannies of Magic Kingdom that you might not see. And again, if you're waiting for the next fast pass and you have some time to kill anyways, this is a fun experience.
Also, if you've been in the Magic Kingdom a bunch and maybe the lines are long, you don't really feeling like waiting in a long queue for a while, it's just something else you can do, keep the kids amused, have a good time out there, just something different to experience.
Exactly. There's a couple things in Epcot. First of all, there's the Epcot KidCot fun spots. That's easy to say.
Yes. I'm impressed you got that out. That's pretty good.
Me too. We do practice.
Yes.
So they have like arts and crafts kind of activities there. They have a cast member from that country. It's throughout the countries at Epcot. And they can also share some of their information about the cultures of their country. And it gives the kids a nice little souvenir to remember their trip after they leave. But the really fun thing at Epcot is the Phineas and Ferb Agent P World Showcase Adventure.
Woo! Where's Perry?
Verb, I know what we're going to do today. So you have Major Monogram and Carl sending you clues to go throughout the park and do some fun missions. We've done it. It's really amazing, some of the graphics and things that come through.
It's right on your phone.
Right. It's right on your phone, and they've added it to the new Play Disney Parks
Oh,
app
it's on
as
there
well.
now. Okay. Great.
So you can get it through both of those areas.
Even better.
Yes. And then another free interactive series of things that kids and adults alike can do is at the Animal Kingdom, they can earn Wilderness Explorer badges. So based on the movie Up, you can go out and do little activities and explore different parts of Animal Kingdom to get up to 30 different stickers or badges.
Wow.
That you can put in your field guide booklet. So again, it's a nice way to get the kids involved in some activities associated with animals in the park, and they get to follow along with their guidebook if they might not get it done the first visit and have it to go on for other times. So those are some really great things that they have at Walt Disney World that give some free activities in the park that's not just necessarily associated with the attractions.
Right. It's not having to wait in queue for a line or go to a show or, go on an attraction.
Exactly.
It's and like you said, for Animal Kingdom, the Wilderness Explorers, it's entertaining, but it's educating as well. You're
Right.
learning some things about these animals as you go along and earn these badges.
Right,
And
you get
so
your
that's great.
veterinarian badge.
Wow.
So, yes.
Excellent.
The other difference between Disney World and Disneyland are the amount of activities outside of the park. So if you don't want to have tickets for every single day that you're there, if you're a local and you just want to head over and do some things, some of them are free or very little cost, and then some are a little bit more pricey. So for resorts that have villas, so they would be like the Disney Vacation Club resorts, but people can get rooms there without having to be a Vacation Club member. They have community halls and outdoor games. And if I remember correctly, I think the last time we were there, I beat you at pool.
I don't know if that was right, but
Oh.
we did have fun playing it.
Yes.
Whoever won, I think by the time, but we haven't. Let's play it this way. We haven't played pool in a long time, so we went out there and played. We had one guy come over and look at us, and we took a shot, and he just shook his head and walked away. That's how bad we were.
Right,
A
right.
regular game of pool took us like an hour and a half to play. It was crazy. We're terrible.
But it's a lot of fun. They have bocce ball there. Indoors, they have a lot of activities and crafts kind of games. They have foosball and other things that are free. They also have some things at times that do have a little price to them, where it's more involved crafts. But so that's a nice thing that they have. Movie Under the Stars, which is free, and it's at many of the resorts. However, I want to point out the Fort Wilderness campgrounds really ups their game by having the Chippendale sing-along prior to the movie. And there's a fire pit there for making s'mores, and it's just a great time to have there at the Fort Wilderness campground. And you don't have to be staying at the campgrounds to actually go and take part into their sing-along and their movie outside. The resorts also have daytime activities there, too. People can investigate that through their brochure when they check in. They get an information guide.
They'll have the information for you right there at the front desk.
Right. But there's a lot of free daytime activities. It could be, like trivia games at the pool, or maybe if you're staying at Animal Kingdom Lodge, you could look at what poop looks like from different animals.
I remember that. You were very interested in the various animal poop.
And I've recommended that to several people, and a lot of kids, that's their big thing, too, is that they really get to fun things. But it's not just that. They have other animal type of presentations that the cast members there do, which is really nice. Then some things that may not be free but have a small fee attached to it are hay rides and horse-drawn carriage rides. Those are at the campgrounds in Port Orleans. Our favorite time to do those is at Christmas when they have all the decorations out and you can go around and really see some really wonderful things and not have to be paying for admission into a park.
Yeah, that's right. It's great.
And lastly, kind of summing a bunch of other things up together, these are more fee-based, is the miniature golf, regular golf,
Yes.
horseback riding, archery, and tons of watercraft rentals. So a lot of information there in that, but just to really share with you that if you're going for an extended stay or and you don't want to go to the park every single day, or on your day of arrival, if it's later in the day and you don't want to use a park ticket for a partial day, then you do have some other options available at Disney World. Whether you're staying on property or not, you could access a lot
And
of these.
I've told our family and friends this many times that, yes, when you go there, you're probably going to visit the parks. I
Right.
mean, that's pretty much why you go to Disney World. But you could have a great week at Walt Disney World and never enter a park. There's so much to do. The resorts are fabulous. I mean, just going from hotel to hotel, trying the food, you can have a great time out there and never enter a park if you want to. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't want to,
Right.
but you absolutely could. If that, or say, let's like you're going to with some family members that aren't really into the parks, you could go to the parks and they could find stuff to do, whether it's golf, whether it's fishing, archery, tennis. There's so much to do out there at Walt Disney World.
Exactly. Okay, number 2 on our list is fast passes. Those work differently at Disney World.
So differently.
So differently. So one of the things that makes it different is that you can reserve up to 3 fast passes per day that you're going to be at the parks in advance for free. It has to be in the same park, so you would have to pick 3 that were in one park.
Yeah, Magic Kingdom,
right.
Hollywood Studios, Epcot, whatever.
Exactly. I mean, you can change it once you get there. You can change it anytime. You can modify these, but if it's really great to have, especially for those more popular attractions.
Yes.
And now that Toy Story Land is open, it's kind of a must if you really want to get on that ride to have a fast pass in advance. If you're staying on Disney properties, you can start making those reservations 60 days out before your trip. Otherwise, it's 30 days in advance that you can do those fast pass reservations. And then as you get to the parks and you utilize those fast passes, then you can add on more single times, whether you do it on the app, online, or they have kiosks throughout the park. And I've even had it where I've had the time expire for all 3 of my fast passes, and it let me do 3 fast passes on the day of.
Oh,
So,
nice.
you know, that's a great feature, and you know that, like I said, you are getting it for free to do that.
And if you are going to do like some of the more popular, whether it be Flight of Passage in Pandora, or whether it be the Slinky Dog Dash, you want to, like when your day becomes available, you want to get on there and get those fast passes right away because they will go quickly.
Exactly.
So when your day becomes available, get ready to pounce on those fast passes if you really want those.
Right. And what's nice is Disney World will send you a reminder prompt as you're getting close to that time, or you can just do like I do, and I set a reminder on my calendar.
Like 8 reminders.
Yes. And the number 1 difference, magic bands.
Woo!
I love the magic
I love the
bands.
magic bands. Oh,
I love
the
it.
magic.
So what these are is the main purpose that I guess that it really originated is it's a way to unlock your hotel or resort room. And so it does have that information coded into it. And it's really exciting, you know, a couple weeks before your trip when you get those in the mail and you know your vacation, your trip to Disney World is about to happen. So that's really exciting. And you do get them free as part of having a hotel reservation, or if you're an annual pass holder, you get one. But otherwise, you can also purchase them. They have at the Disney stores. They have a lot of designed bands that you can do, or you can bling your own, which we've done. Thank goodness for Pinterest.
There you go.
But they also serve a lot of other purposes too. So, as I mentioned, they access your resort room. They also now, I wanted to point out, are adding that you can open your resort with your phone now too, though. They've added that to the app. Either way, you can make your choice on that. Also, the magic bands serve as a way of purchasing items, because once you've checked into the resort and you have a credit card on file, that will be linked to your magic band unless you ask them otherwise. So like if you want yours to have privileges to make purchases, you can do that. If you don't want your kids to have it, you can have theirs blocked so that they can't make purchases. They do have safeguards. You do need a PIN. So
Yeah, so if it falls off, someone's just going to start taking your magic band and start charging
Right,
around.
exactly.
They happen to know your PIN too. But,
Right.
You know, the odds of that are incredible.
They also are used for your fast passes. That's where the information is stored, and that's where you key in or badge into your attractions with your fast passes. And then there's some other little things that sometimes happen, not always. I don't want to give anything away, but there's sometimes nice little surprises where attractions might recognize you. And so it's nice when those things happen.
Yeah.
But magic bands are phenomenal. I do think that the organization is looking at possibly seeing if people prefer to use their phone versus a magic band, but for right now you have options.
I like the magic band. Yes, the phones, that everybody's carrying a phone around, and most people are carrying phones around anyway. Maybe not the children, but most adults are carrying phones around anyway, so that will work for you. But I mean, it's just so nice to have the magic bands because it just goes right on your wrist, just like a wristwatch or whatever, and you can leave your ID, you can leave your credit card, you can leave your room key. Everything goes back and stays. You don't have to carry that around when you're going through the parks. It's just all right there on your wrist, and it's very, very handy.
Right. And if for some reason your phone, either the battery dies or, heaven forbid, you lose a phone at a Disney park.
That's never happened.
I don't know who that would have ever happened to, but at least you can get in your room then.
You still look. She lost her phone at the Radiator Springs Racers, or at least that's where we assume she lost it. So every time we get on that ride now, she's still sure she's going to see it somewhere out there
be in the bushes,
in the grounds,
somewhere.
just still sitting there. This is years later, but I'm sure that phone is still there somewhere.
Right. So anyways, those are the 5 categories of the differences between Walt Disney World and Disneyland that may help you understand that park more if you're used to the one on the West Coast.
Very nice. And now I'm going to go into, if you're used to Walt Disney World and you're coming to the Disneyland Resort, what you can expect when you go there, what will be a little different for you. First thing right off the bat is going to be the compact size. It is, compared to Walt Disney World, it is a very small space. They fit this into a small area in Orange County, and they built a lot of what used to be really cheap motels and such around it. They've since upgraded a lot of those. They're nicer motels and hotels around there. Disney kind of took the reins on that and said, look, we want this to be better for everybody out there. But still, because of that space was eaten up by other people, they have a very compact space. So they had to fit a lot in a very small area. But the good thing about that is that when you go, if you're going to Walt Disney World, you have to maybe hop on a bus or hop on the monorail or hop on a boat, or if you brought your car, drive to the other park. It takes a while to get from park to park. You can just walk right across from Disneyland to Disney's California Adventure within less than 5 minutes. It's right across the way from each other. So you can just go back and forth if you have a park hopper, you can go back and forth between the parks all you want, all day long, and kind of pick the rides you want to go on. So
yeah,
that is a convenience to it.
That is a great feature, I have to say. Even though I, love Disney World and, grew up over there, it is pretty amazing that you can get from one park to another and go back and forth to have different experiences throughout the day and use different fast passes or whatever. So that's true. That is a great feature.
Yeah, but because it's so small, you really can knock out a lot in a very short amount of time there. So, where we've talked about Walt Disney World, it's a week, it's more than that. 5 days minimum, I think, when you go to Walt Disney World. You really need, a long weekend doesn't seem like, we go there a week and we're like, we didn't do anywhere near all we wanted to do. Whereas the Disneyland Resort, 3 to 4 days, really max, is all you need there. You can really knock it out in a day or two. But, if you want to do a long weekend, do 3 or 4 days, it's perfect for that because you can get a lot done. They do only have 3 actual Disney hotels there: the Grand Californian, the Disneyland Hotel, and the Paradise Pier Hotel. So keep that in your notes. There aren't as many like in Walt Disney World. There's so many different hotels of various different price ranges that you can go for. These all 3 are different price ranges, but they're all, even the Paradise Pier, which is the more economy, I say that in quotations, of the 3 hotels, is still a pretty high priced hotel. So know that coming in. If you want to stay there, yes, you get a magic hour, which is extra magical, believe me, if you're going to the Disneyland Resort. Not like the magic hours at Walt Disney World, because those are open for all those hotels within the resort. Since there's only 3 hotels, there's a lot less people that go in for these magic hours at Disneyland. But there are many, as I was talking about before, Disney kind of got the reins on some of the hotels around there. They have many what they call good neighbor hotels nearby. So if you're looking for a hotel, if you don't want to pay that price for the Disney actual hotels, there are some good ones nearby in the area, but look for that good neighbor note on there that guarantees that Disney has looked at them for price, for quality, for customer service and everything. And they range. Some are better, some are worse, but at least you can find what you're looking for possibly out there. And the good thing about that is almost all of those hotels, they either have transportation, if they're just a few blocks away, or you can just walk right into the park, which is very, very convenient.
Right, which is another big difference. Yes, and those good neighbor hotels are listed on their website, on the Disneyland website. You can even sometimes access making a reservation through the Disneyland website through them, or you can go directly to the hotels.
Now, again, with the compact space there, that means there are a lot of things that are also smaller there. The first thing you're going to notice, if you've only been to Walt Disney World, is when you walk down Main Street and you look at the castle, at Sleeping Beauty's castle, it's going to look absolutely tiny compared to Cinderella's castle. It's cute, it's petite, but it is tiny. Yeah, you know, they get some nice scaling. Remember, this thing was built in 1955. There were some limitations. They built it in a year, the whole park in a year. So, and while they've done some resurfacing to it and changed some things, they've never really built it up and tried to make it anything more than what it is. It's basically the original castle from 1955. But that might shock you right away when you first see this castle, because it is itty bitty compared to Cinderella's castle.
Right. You really have to have that in mind. I know the first time that I came to Disneyland, it was like, oh my gosh, how disappointing. And so, later on I did some refocusing and I said, this is the original, and you have to just appreciate that and how revolutionary it was at the time in terms of how it was built and how it looked, and, using the forced perspectives, etc., all along Main Street as well. So that is a great tip to say, keep that in mind.
Yeah,
when
be
you're
prepared
looking
for
at
it, because it will be shocking if you haven't seen it first. If you've only seen Cinderella's castle, it will surprise you when you first see Sleeping Beauty's castle. One thing to know, if you're planning your dates for when you go out there, we know Walt Disney World, there are annual pass holders. There are plenty of annual pass holders for Walt Disney World, but there aren't, it's not made up. What their crowds are based on is tourism, tourists coming into town more of. It's not as many annual pass holders, not as many locals. The Orlando area is much smaller area, or just Florida in general, smaller area than what we're talking about in the middle of Southern California, where you have Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego, Santa Barbara to draw in from. Disneyland is driven by annual pass holders. So days when the kids are off, or around holidays when all the annual passes don't have blackouts, can be very busy there, because that's when the people will go to the parks. Now, if you can find dates where many of the annual passes are blacked out, Saturdays in the summer are a lot of times really good for this. Right. It can be busy because obviously there are still tourists there and there are people buying tickets that day, but it'll knock out about half the annual pass holders there, and that will free up that day. Sundays in the summer are terrible. Don't go on a Sunday if you can help it. Really, if you go onto Twitter and follow the Disneyland Resort or Disneyland annual pass holders, almost every Sunday you'll see that the Mickey and Friends parking garage is full up at some point in the day. That's because there's so many people there on Sundays a lot in the summer.
Right. And, it's interesting that you said that, because this week I did get somebody ask me if we were to recommend to somebody whether to go to Disneyland during the week in the summer or a weekend in September, what would we recommend?
I would I always recommend weekdays. Weekdays are always better if you got it, but anytime before about 5 or 6 o'clock, because after 5 or 6 o'clock, some of the people that get off of school or whatever will start coming to the park. What would you say?
Well, I made it a complicated answer, obviously, but I did mention that as well, that weekdays are usually better, that before, the later in the day when people even coming off of work might just want to go in for a couple hours. I said the other thing that might be considered for the September weekend is, again, looking at, is it a blackout date for some or most of the annual passes
Sometimes they stretch
like
into
on a
September,
Saturday.
yeah.
So, but that's a great point
And
to keep in mind.
I'm not telling you that don't go there on a Sunday if you're coming out and staying a long weekend or on a vacation or whatever. I'm just recommending if you look at what days are most convenient, what days are going to be the most full. Sundays tend to be very busy. Saturdays tend to not be in the summer, but mostly look at the calendar. Look out the blackout dates for those annual passes. If you see the couple lowest ones blacked out, you're probably pretty good. And that day will be a fairly low crowd day. I mean, it'll always be a decent crowd there, and they're going to be working on some things coming up here as they're putting up Galaxy's Edge and doing some other things around the parks where they're going to start limiting some of these passes even more to kind of mitigate the crowds a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with that.
Right. If you have flexibility, then look and see what would be a more advantageous day to go. If not, don't be discouraged. It's just looking at how you can best attack it, and some of the things would be like going very early in the morning, and then maybe when it gets to its peak in the afternoon, it's head out for a little while and then come back later in the evening if you have that option as well. So
now it seems like I'm talking poorly about Disneyland. Don't get me wrong. I love Disneyland. Disneyland is great. It's Walt's original dream. And that's one of the great things about Disneyland. Yes, the castle is small, but they have rides there that are still, I mean, of course, they've redone them since 1955, but they are the original rides that were there when Walt opened the place in July of 1955. The Jungle Cruise, King Arthur Carousel, Mad Tea Party, the Mark Twain Riverboat, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, Peter Pan's Flight, Snow White's Scary Adventure, Storybook Land canal boats were all there on opening day in 1955. So you can be still riding. And yes, they are updated, but they're still the same rides. And Walt was on those rides. Walt saw that those rides were built. They are great rides, and they've been there for as long as Disneyland has stood.
Right. And, like you said, just knowing that Walt was on a ride, or, we look at I know it's the anniversary for the Walt Disney World presents the Tiki Birds or Tiki Room. Mm-hmm. And so it's just great to be a part of that history and know that you're there kind of on a, really, a special place.
Right. Others that Walt actually rode on. It's a Small World from the 1964 World's Fair. That evolved from the 1964 World's Fair, and they moved it over to California. By the way, the backdrop on that and everything, if you know the Walt Disney World one, it's all inside. It's kind of smaller, and actually I believe the ride is, riding them both, I think it's a shorter ride, which for some people might, prefer that, hearing that song over and over again. But we really like the California version of that ride. And again, it was one of the ones that Walt actually rode on.
Right. And we especially like it at holiday time.
Oh, it's beautiful. They light it up. I don't know if you saw our video from this week that we were previewing this week. I put a picture of it all lit up. It's spectacular. Right. Also, great moments with Mr. Lincoln was also part of the 1964 World's Fair and just shocked people at the time. It may not be as big a deal now, but it was very interesting at the time. There were reports. If you'll hear the stories out there from some of the tour guides or whatever. There were reports that these wild stories of this audio animatronic. And he said he stood up and he walked out onto the stage, which is obviously not true. He pretty much just stands up and kind of looks around and gives the speech, but there was funny, wild reports of what they saw in 1964 at the World's Fair.
Right, that it was just, so remarkable that that kind of technology existed back then.
And of course, Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room, which is one of the great places, and Walt wanted to have that built. We talked about that with Nicole a couple weeks ago, the former VIP hostess at Disneyland. That's one of her favorite places, and that is amazing how that has come to be. So, right. Other things at Disneyland that you'll find of interest is that there's certain things that are only you can find there. You cannot find them at Walt Disney World. Certain rides you can only find the Matterhorn bobsleds and the Matterhorn itself only at Disneyland. So, if you're looking to experience that, you've got to go there. It's the only place to find it.
Right. Another way to see a Yeti.
Abominable snowman. What? Yeti? Whatever. Indiana Jones Adventure. Yes, it's the same virtual thing as Dinosaur at the Animal Kingdom. However, it's got Indiana Jones as the backdrop. I mean, Tell me that's not better than Dinosaur. I'm sorry. I think it's better.
That is better. That is really pretty cool.
Yeah. The Finding Nemo submarine voyage. We had the subs. What was it? It's the 8th largest fleet in the world or something like that. Submarine fleet in the world, something like that.
Yeah, that Walt Disney Company owns, yes.
Toontown. If you have young kids, Toontown is great for really young children to get out and kind of run around and explore and play around. They have the Roger Rabbit's cartoon spin there. Over at Disney's California Adventure, Pixar Pier, of course, just brand new, just opening up. The Incredicoaster, only there. The Pixar Pal Around, which is also the Mickey wheel. You look at it, it's the big thing. You can't miss it when you're there. It's the big Mickey-faced merry-go-round. That is something that's
Ferris
only
wheel.
there. Ferris wheel, not merry-go-round. You're right. Because I was thinking Pal Around.
Right.
Yeah. Cars Land, which is spectacular. Cars Land, if you know the movie Cars, I know Radiator Springs. It's like going right down Radiator Springs, obviously with a lot more people there and a few less cars. But it like everything is placed perfectly. It looks just like the street in Radiator Springs. It's fantastic.
Right. It's a really immersive area, and I think that's what Disney is starting to really pick up on, that people want to feel very much immersed into the experience. Right. And interesting story there is that some of the executives, when they were first opening Cars Land, were just watching the flow of the crowds and how they were accepting it or enjoying it, I should say. And they heard a kid say to their parents, "This is where they filmed Cars." And they knew right away it was a hit and that they did a great job, that it would actually seem like you were going to the place that the movie was filmed at. So
yeah, that's great. It's a great place. You got to go there. The Radiator Springs Racers. Yes, it's a little similar to Test Track, but the storyline with it, the setting around it is really much better in my opinion than Test Track.
Right.
But I guess that's 6 of one, half dozen of the others. Whatever you like.
Right. I guess the Test Track has the same type of technology, but
it's not exactly the same ride. But it's similar.
But the storyline in the Radiator Springs Racers is a great story, and it really guides you through the whole experience of being in the movie.
Yeah, Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters, where Luigi has his family all in from Carsally, and you're dancing around to numbers in the cars. That's a lot of fun. We love that ride. And Mater's Junkyard Jamboree, which now you kind of have something similar to that. Now the Toy Story Land is open, and the Alien Swirling Saucers is it's just a different version of that ride now over at the Hollywood Studios at Walt Disney World. Other rides only at Disney's California Adventure. Yes, the Tower of Terror. Well, the Tower of Terror is now the Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. Again, in my opinion, I loved Tower of Terror, and I was kind of curious about whether this was the right way to go. But it's a better ride, and granted, I am a Marvel fan, so I like that. But I think it's top to bottom a better ride. The story's better. It's a lot of fun. There's more action on that ride. You haven't gone on it yet.
No.
But
so when you say top to bottom, that you meant
there's no pun intended there. There's no pun intended. But that is currently the only Marvel-themed ride at either of the resorts, Disneyland Resort or the Walt Disney World Resort. There are building some over at Walt Disney World, as we know, but right now that's the only place you can experience a Marvel-themed attraction at these parks. World of Color, when that comes back, it's closed for right now as they're getting finished doing their refurbishments of Pixar Pier. But World of Color is amazing. You've got to go experience that out in the bay in front of the Mickey wheel. It's great. Or excuse me, the Pixar Pal Around. And the show Frozen live at the Hyperion is a great show. It's a truncated version of what's on Broadway now. I mean, obviously they added more to make that, but it's the show. It's Frozen. If you have kids, if you have young children that love the movie Frozen, or if you just want to, and I'll talk about more about this in a little bit, if you just want to get out of the heat for about an hour,
right.
It's a great place. It's a great show. It's a lot of fun. It's all the songs, it's all the characters, it's great.
Right. And it's a show, meaning like it's almost like a Broadway production, as
right.
you mentioned. It's not watching the movie or anything like that.
It's a stage show.
It's a stage show, and they really do a great job with, not only the cast that they've secured for that, but just the whole set design and how things go is just really impressive.
Right. So that's it. That's what I think about the Disneyland Resort, the things that are different. I think both have their merit. Walt Disney World is Walt Disney World. I mean, it is crazy. It is really Walt Disney World. It is fantastic. Disneyland is the original. It's more compact, it packs a punch for its size.
So there's
like
one.
you.
Thanks. There is one more thing that's different of Disneyland from Disney World that is actually a really nice benefit is, again, going back to the issue of being compact in the size, is in each of those parks, you have everything, and what you may have to go in Walt Disney World to 2 parks or so to see some of those different attractions, they have them in one location. Yeah. And I know that, one of my dear friends had gone to Walt Disney World recently for the first time, and he was rather disappointed in the fact that when he went to Magic Kingdom, he couldn't do Star Tours and, some of those other rides that are at the at the Disney Hollywood Studios. So that's another really plus, in addition to what we mentioned earlier of being able to go back and forth from the parks. Each park really has included a lot of all the things that you might see at Disney World, but into one smaller location.
Another thing I forgot to mention is that Disneyland has the place where Walt slept overnights in the park, in Walt's apartment. Now, you only can go up there if you do a tour, but they offer tours. Go up and check out Walt's apartment. And we were discussing it just a couple of weeks ago. It's a really special place. If you have any place in your heart for Walt Disney and what he created out there, it's really fun to go check out. So that is the only thing, or not the only thing, but one of the few things that really sets Disneyland apart. Now, we've gone really long on this part, so I just want to hit some stories real quickly as we do every week. We'll start with a little Star Wars news here. There's been some casting notes for Star Wars Episode 9, yet untitled, coming up here. I believe it's not this December, but the following December is when it's coming out. Kerry Russell, who you may know from Felicity, The Americans, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, among other movies, she reportedly has been cast for an unknown role this week that has, quote, action-heavy fight scenes, unquote.
Wow.
So what character could that be? Is it Rey's mother? Is it a new resistance leader, fighter? Is it a new female villain? I don't know, but it's an interesting casting. She worked with J.J. Abrams in the past on Felicity, Cloverfield, Mission Impossible 3, so not really surprising she would go back and work again with J.J. Abrams.
Right, that's exciting. Hey, and I did have a question. It's a Star Wars question for you. And I know last episode here we were talking about the fact that the Disney company is trying to purchase 20th Century Fox. Mm-hmm. So if they are successful in that, would the Star Wars opening now go back to the original where it's introduced by...
Dun, dun,
I
dun,
know.
Dun, dun, dun. We can only hope, and that is a distinct possibility that might happen. I don't see why they wouldn't, because I know. I mean, don't get me wrong. We have loved the openings for the new Disney Lucasfilm, but it does kind of feel like it's missing that little drum roll coming in when you grew up watching these movies. So that would be fantastic if they brought that back. If this goes through, we should know here in a couple of weeks whether that's going to happen or not.
Right.
One other that was great, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
One other casting note, and this is again, it's a report out there. This is actually from a couple of weeks ago, but I haven't been able to touch on this yet. But I think you'll like this. According to a story from the British paper The Sun, Ewan McGregor is set to return as Obi-Wan Kenobi in Episode 9.
Wow, that would be awesome.
According to the story, he's going to shoot secret, quote-unquote, scenes for the trilogy finale. They don't say anything more about it than that. Again, this is just a report according to sources. It's not necessarily true or untrue. So what is it going to be? A Force ghost? Is it going to be a flashback scene? I don't know. I'm just happy because I love Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Right.
I thought that was one of the bright spots of the prequel. The first one through 3 was his job kind of mimicking Alec Guinness in many ways as Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I love to see him more as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
And you're right. He really did mimic. You could tell even as as you got closer to like Episode 3, his mannerisms, etc., and just kind of like some of the chuckling he would do. You could really see very much a flashback from the original Obi-Wan.
Absolutely. One more Star Wars story out there. The proposed Star Wars themed hotel at Walt Disney World. It looks like it's progressing now. Disney filed permits with the state of Florida on July 2nd for the, quote, clearing, earthwork, mass grading, and development, as well as the construction of a bridge over a nearby canal. Plans didn't say much about what it actually was, but they're calling it Project H is their secret name for this hotel. We don't know many more names about it. We don't know anything really about it. Here's how they described it. They say this first-of-its-kind resort will combine luxury with complete immersion into the authentic Star Wars story. Guest journey through space will start when everyone departs together for a multi-day Star Wars adventure by boarding a starship alive with characters and stories that unfold all around them during a voyage through the galaxy. At the resort, guests immediately become active citizens of the galaxy and can dress up in proper attire. Every resort window will also have a view into space, and the opportunity for immersion at the resort will also stand out among Disney resorts around the globe, as it will be connected seamlessly to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disney's Hollywood Studios, allowing guests a total Star Wars experience. Take my money now.
Yeah, hashtag sign me up.
Yeah, I know it's going to be expensive because they've already talked about this is going to be a luxury place and it's going to be all immersive, but I'm going to splurge on it once. It sounds so great.
Absolutely.
As a Star Wars fan since '77, it sounds wonderful. And, and theoretically, you can go there for whatever. I think they were saying originally when we heard about this resort that it's going to be, basically based on 4-day stays or something along those lines. But if it's connected right to Galaxy's Edge, you can theoretically go into this resort and just go there to Galaxy's Edge and back to the resort, and you're just in Star Wars for 4 straight days. You don't even have to, I'm sure there'll be other patrons within Galaxy's Edge, but basically you're just in the Star Wars world for 4 days. Oh,
well, we need translators.
Yeah. Work on your Arabesh. Start
Right?
getting to work on that. Boy, I'm a nerd. I know the Star Wars language. And we're moving on. One other thing I want to get to before we get to our tips here is that D23, Disney's official fan club, for the first time ever, will be hosting 2 panels at San Diego Comic-Con coming up here in just a couple weeks, which is really exciting news. And unfortunately, we had some prior commitments, and we're not going to be able to necessarily make it out to these days, although we are going to do one thing out there. But I'm really disappointed now. Friday, July 20th at 4:45 p.m., they're going to be celebrating 90 years of Mickey Mouse. D23's Justin Arthur will host a panel, including Brett Ewan, Becky Klein. Brett Ewan is a voice actor. Becky Klein is director of the Walt Disney Archives, and Mark Henn, master Disney animator, as they look at Mickey's roles in animated films and television shows through the years, the Magic Kingdoms and beyond. That sounds like a really fun panel.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Also, Saturday, July 21st at 7:45 p.m., they're going to do 25 years of Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas. I didn't realize 25 years of Nightmare Before Christmas.
I know, that's so hard to believe.
It says here, D23 will pull back the curtain on this stop-motion Halloween and Christmas classic with a behind-the-scenes retrospective panel featuring the team that helped bring the film to life 25 years ago. Henry Selick, the director, Kelly Asbury, the art director, I'm going to totally botch his name. Edie Ichioka is the editor, and Anthony Scott, the animator, will all be in attendance. So that sounds like another great panel.
Yeah.
And I know that one thing we're going to do. We're going to be going to the D23 member mixer, which is located just off the site at the Hard Rock Hotel that same day. I'm hoping that some of those people, since this is after that mixer, might be at this event. And if you're going, if you happen to secure tickets, if you're a D23 member, and if you're not, and you're a Disney fan, you really should be. It doesn't cost that much. You really get some great insight into Disney stuff. We'll talk about it more coming up here as we get towards purchasing tickets for the D23 Expo and some other things. But you really should look into it if you're a Disney fan.
Right. It has, like you said, we could do a whole show on all the benefits of something like a D23. And I know that one of my tips in the future are going to be related to a holiday event that they
very
sponsor.
Nice. Very nice. Anyway, if you're going out to this member mixer, come out, look for us. We'll be out there. Come and say hi. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us what you think about the show. And just, we'd love to meet some of our listeners out there.
Exactly.
So that's it for our stories for this week. I have many more stories, but once again, I can't get to them all because there are just so many Disney stories every week. If there's something you want to talk about Disney-wise, there's a story that comes up you'd like to talk with us about, feel free to email us, HyperionAdventuresPodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter @HyperionPodcast or Facebook and Instagram @HyperionAdventuresPodcast. But now, as we always do, we finish up with the tips of the week. And as always, we start with my lovely Michelle.
Aw, thank you, sweetie. So my tip is kind of continuing on for the concept of if you're going to Disney World for the first time, or whether or not you've been at Disneyland, and that is get to know how to get around there. And I know that a lot of times for people who haven't been there before, they feel like it's really not very fast at all. And that could be true, especially if you're used to Disneyland and how you can walk around places pretty quickly to get here to and from. If you're going from a resort to a park and a park back to your resort, it's usually one single mode of transportation, whether it be a bus, a boat, or monorail, is usually just one quick shot. And what's really great now is on the app, if you're staying there, you can see when the next departure will be so that you don't have to go.
It really is a benefit.
Right. You don't have to go stand and wait in line for
extra
that
time, or if you want to do that one extra thing in your room before you head down there.
Exactly.
You'll kind of know when the buses are coming.
Right. If you want to get from resort to resort, let's say you're leaving your resort and you want to meet up with some people at their resort, that you might have to take a couple forms of transportation. I mean, unless you're on the monorail resort loop where you could just take the monorail. Otherwise, you might have to actually take a transportation to a park and a park to the next resort. Or you can use Lyft or a minivan.
Love the minivan.
Minivan, which is also
So
a
cute.
Lyft product in that you are arranging transportation, but the van actually comes decked out as a Minnie Mouse theme.
Polka dot.
Right. So, again, if you're going to Disney World for the first time, you can look at these things at their website under transportation, but it's just getting a little bit familiar with how does that work so that if you're trying to go from one location, especially for like a dining reservation, you really want to make sure you're allowing for enough time in transportation to get you there. They tell you on your reservations a lot of times allow up to an hour or more, and that's a pretty safe bet that you'll get there on time with a little spare buffer. And I know that might feel like, wow, I've lost an hour of my day. But the reality is there's a lot to see, even when you're in transportation and you're at a amazingly beautiful location in Central Florida. So look around, realize you're at Walt Disney World, and just enjoy the ride.
Absolutely, absolutely. That was a great tip. I
you.
love the transportation out at Walt Disney World. It really is convenient and handy to get from place to place to place. My tip this week, and I'm going to make it pretty quick here because we have gone really long on this show, but that's okay because hopefully you're listening to us because you like to listen to us, and we like being with you.
Maybe Jennifer has another long ride.
I hope it's a really long ride for this one. But anyway, what I'm going to talk about is, look, Friday, if you didn't see the news, if you're out somewhere else in the country or you're not in Southern California like we were, Friday was incredibly hot. It was bizarrely hot. It's
crazy.
Hard. It's never that hot here. I mean, we're in Southern California. We live in Southern California, and we pay a lot to live in Southern California because the weather is usually pretty spectacular. Reportedly, and I just saw this, I haven't verified it, so if I'm wrong on this, I apologize. But on Friday, Disneyland Anaheim hit 113 degrees. That was reportedly the hottest day ever at any Disney park.
Wow.
Ever. Any of the Disney parks around the globe. That may be incorrect, but I just saw a report of that being possible. So there are ways, if you're going to go out in a park, and you're not going to run into 113 degrees, every day, but, you're going to run into the 90s, the high 80s. It can be warm. First thing, I'm going to reiterate what I said a couple weeks ago. Hydrate. Bring water in.
Absolutely.
Go find, if you go to a fountain, drinks, you can get a free cup of water. There's water fountains everywhere. Nicole, who joined us the other day, pointed out that if you go to the First Aid, they have the ice water there, which is even better. But stay hydrated out there. The other thing you can do, and this is whether it's, to get out for an hour, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever, to get out of the heat and the sun every once in a while and cool down. There are places in these parks where you can do that. Go into Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room with a Dole Whip. You're double cool there. It's like a 10-minute show with a Dole Whip. That's a good way to cool off. I just talked about great moments with Mr. Lincoln. Yes, okay, the show is whatever, but it's a nice way to get out of the heat for a little while and enjoy it. other things like some of the shows. There's shows at Disneyland. I'm talking about Disneyland specifically right now. Storytelling at the Royal Theater with Mr. Smythe and Mr. Jones.
Oh my God, that is awesome.
It's outdoors, but it's undercover. You're in the shade, and it is one of the funniest and enjoyable shows you're ever going to see out there. That's about a 15, 20-minute show. Mickey's Magical, any of the shows, basically. Mickey's Magical Map, the stuff at Walt Disney World you can go to. Those are great ways to just kind of beat the heat for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever you want to do. In California Adventure, the Animation Academy, Turtle Talk with Crush, and the Sorcerer's Workshop are all in one kind of area there. It's a great place to go in, get out of the heat, and just kind of relax for a little bit, but still keep the young ones entertained, whether it be Turtle Talk, or learning to draw your favorite Disney character. The Sorcerer's Workshop kind of has some fun activities in there that they can do. And again, you're out of the sun, you're out of the heat, just cooling off for a little bit. Believe me, doing things like this will make your day that much better, because when everybody gets hot and tired and, like I said before, dehydrated, it starts to become a pretty tough day to make as you move on. So find your ways to beat the heat.
And that's a great piece of information, too, or tip for people at Walt Disney World, too. The summertime there is humid, and sometimes you're seeing rain, and you might not think about the fact that you really still need to hydrate there as well.
Right.
And so getting out of the hot areas from time to time and making sure you're drinking plenty of water is a great tip.
Yeah, and if you're like at Walt Disney World, if you're at Epcot, if you go to the World Showcase, virtually not all of them, but many of the countries have like some sort of film or show or something that you can go into and kind of cool off for a little bit. Watch, learn something about Canada, learn something about France, learn something about China. The American Pavilion has the Voices of Liberty, which is a fun show, and then there's things you can do to kind of get out. And Club Cool at Epcot, where you can go get free samples of soft drinks from around the world, which is also a nice way to cool down. But there's always something you can look for. Find a way to get out, and just 15 minutes at a time, 20 minutes at a time, just find parts through the day where you can cool off. And that way you'll just enjoy your day that much more.
Exactly. And, and again, making sure that you're keeping tabs on the kids and the fact that they also need to be kept hydrated, and they may not be thinking to ask for water or anything, but have that readily available for them too. Because again, you're at a great place. We want everybody to be happy, everybody to be safe, and to really enjoy the magic of Disney.
You're paying a lot of money to go. Let's face it. We know what it is. You're paying a lot of money to go out there and have a good time. Do everything you can to make it a good time. Have a great time at these parks. They're fun. Make sure you keep them fun, and there's just some simple little things you can do to make that easier on you.
Great tip, Vic.
Thank you. So that's it for this week. We've gone way long, but that's okay, because we love being with you. Next week, it'll probably be long too, but next week, Run Disney Races registration is starting to open up here just in a couple weeks. Nice. So next week, Michelle and I, we've told you in the past that we have gone from never running to recently running our first half marathon, and we're going to give you some tips after you register for these races and how you can train to kind of get set for those races. We'll tell you at least what worked for us. So if you want to hear what we have to say, what we did to go from nothing to running a half marathon, we'll be happy to share those with you next week.
Right, and we'll also be able to reveal our secret story of our very first Run Disney experience. Our secret story. It's just so great.
It's a fun and embarrassing story, but we love to share it with you because we love you all out there. So again, thanks for joining us. You found us today. If you're looking for us in the future, we're on SoundCloud, we're on Stitcher, we're on iTunes and Google Play, where you can subscribe to us. Also, if you like this show, there are places on there that you can give us a review. It really helps to draw in some other people out there that might want to listen to this show. Maybe they're not sure about it. Do I take the time to, it's almost an hour show today. Do I want to put an hour of my time out to this show? Give us a review and let people know what you think of the show. If you have anything you want to say to us, whether it be a story, whether it be something you want to discuss about the show, whether it be your own tip, we will gladly give you credit. Whether you just want to say hi, whatever, you can find us on social media, on Twitter at Hyperion Podcast, on Facebook and Instagram at Hyperion Adventures Podcast, on the web, HyperionAdventurespodcast.com, and of course you can email us at HyperionAdventurespodcast@gmail.com. So that's it for this week. Thank you so much for sticking out to almost an hour show. We really appreciate you sharing that time with us, and we hope that you have another magical week.